Best of r/Tales from Tech Support episode 101. Subscribe for edit videos daily. Well, it's been a year since my last post, but I hope you've all been doing well. Things are going well in quarantine over here. Servers aren't breaking down, and automated tasks are working perfectly. I figure it's time for another story to pass the time, so we'll start this off with, I returned to my previous job, luckily on best of terms and during the perfect time. $Big Boss, the CEO developed a new structure to the company, and expanded the office. Now there were 2 offices, needing a size admin to oversee them. To begin this overhaul and fill the space we needed, we were looking at buying computers for both offices. A big endeavor, needless to say. Finally we're incorporating customer support, in-house support, T3/app development, and a technician home base/inventory stockpile. $Big Boss. Now, we're only going to need 25 more computers to support the new hires we're going to ramp up to. Me. Great, I'm thinking some low to mid-range PCs. Nothing too crazy but still delivers good performance, and no hang-ups. I say this as before, all computers were either the size of my palm outstretched, or 4GB RAM, 5 GHz/2, 1 GHz 4 and 2 core CPUs. The 2 main systems they had an Intel Quad desktop, and a laptop. We provide support to multiple applications, therefore minimum ticketing software needed to be open, Chrome for anything else, and its multitude of tabs if you're a power tasker, Active Directory. The previous setup wasn't cutting it, and people would be sitting there waiting for their computer to either start up, or catch up to them. 2019, and they didn't even have the time for an SSD upgrade. We calculate the cost, approximately $630 per unit. No issue, as that also included the labor of having it built. Suddenly $Big Boss turns and says, $Big Boss, wait a minute, if we order more, we can get the price down even further. Now, I've known him to have a central processor failure before once or twice, and for any financial calculating, that's why we have an accountant. Me, UHH, no sir. The overall cost, $Big Boss, I've got an MBA, you've only got a technical degree. If you think you're up to tell me how many we should need, then show me the credentials. Otherwise, your ballpark is telling me what to order. We were in a group meeting, so I was taken aback and the accountant looks at me, I look at them. $VP, the vice president, nods their head in agreement and takes over. $VP, I spoke with $Big Boss before this meeting. It all makes sense for $Big Boss statement just then, and I brace for what I'm going to hear next. $VP, I've calculated that we can get the price down to $540 a unit. It'll take ordering a few more computers, but I'm not one to split hairs when we can save money. Box over here was able to figure out what product to buy, but as we're more accustomed to the business side from here on out, I don't think he's needed at this meeting anymore. I wait for a moment. $VP, you can leave now. Me, oh, no problem. I get up and pick up all my items. Right as I'm about to close the door, I pop back in and ask, me, how many units were you thinking of purchasing to get the price that low? $VP, well, the math is a bit complicated. It works on a sliding scale. I leave, and since I'm not in this process, I'll let it go the way it's going to go. I make sure to set up purchasing for our new licenses we'll need, and everything progresses like a regular day. We end up with 75 extra computers over what we needed. They spent more money to spend less money. I'm flabbergasted, but I take one of the PCs and get ready to set up the computer. I take out one of our installer flash drives, and start up the PC. Everything checks out, except the drive is reading 149 GB, 160, instead of the 116 GB, 125, that I expected to see. Strange, as I only saw 125 GB SSD and 160 GB HDD on the ordering request for the smallest drives listed. So I pop open the case, and I see a couple of options have changed. Instead of 8 GB of RAM, it's a 4 GB model. No issue, I guess. Instead of SSDs, they have HDDs. Instead of the processor I showed them, it's the cheaper one. They chose a different model of computer entirely, the only thing sharing being the motherboard. These are assembled by a local base computer builder who offered multiple options, so they put down the money for the parts and labor. The one reason we ordered new computers to fix was the performance bottleneck and fit new workspaces that have higher requirements, and completely overlooking that, ordered something similar to what we already had. I sit tapping my thumbs thinking of how to fix this. I get up and head into $Big Boss office. $Big Boss. So, how do you like the computers? Me. They're not what I ordered. He lets out a quick chuckle. $Big Boss. You're right. We gave you even more than you ordered. I just walk out of the room and begin setting up the computers. While fast at first, they begin to slow down within the first 2 months, and the third is just the same as it was in the beginning. Long startup times. I'm spoiled by SSDs and waiting for the computer to catch up. In the end, I go to $Big Boss in a one-on-one meeting and explain, we need to upgrade the computers you bought with only a couple of things. It's going to cost $3,600 to upgrade the ones we have on the floor with just simple necessities. I can bring the RAM up to 8 GB and change out the hard drives for solid state drives. At minimum, you're going to have a better startup time and no one will complain. $Big Boss. But we just got new computers. Just because they're new, doesn't mean that they're fast. 30 minutes later, and with unrelenting statistics and I've got the go ahead to order. 1 week of opening cases and I've swapped the 1x4 with a 1x8, and moved the 4s into the other cases that only had 4, bringing them to 2x4, with some still at 1x4 with HDDs, switched out most of the cases with 125 GB SSDs. I wasn't going to fool around with a CPU upgrade on each and every one of them, so there's still a bottleneck from time to time. But otherwise, it's a newer architecture than the other processors than before, so I can safely say it's an upgrade. I'm now included in all meetings even when it's not technical. Much to $VP's dismay. At least I got a bottle of whiskey out of this in the end. From my savings. And that's how I upgraded our office PCs over the course of 3 months start to finish, when it could have been done in 1 week. TL. Doctor, you're in charge of telling us what computer to upgrade to. We found a cheaper alternative, so we're going to make that change without telling you. Why are the new computers slow? Last note, I don't mean that everything that is good has to have 8 GB of RAM, or an SSD. That's what was definitely needed in this case, however. Edit. The whole reason he ordered more than what we needed, and was okay with even such a big price tag was, $VP put into his head a vision of grandeur that in the coming months we would need more computers as we're going to blow up and suddenly need that many more employees because we already expanded into 2 offices. As you can tell from this pandemic, we don't need that many employees at work right now in the office. Thank you. Next. I work for an X-ray imaging software company as technical support. This call was from the office's IT guy, who was apparently actually just a friend of the doctor's who was better with computers than the doctor himself. Not by much, though. IT guy, hi, I just upgraded the doctor's computers to Windows 10 and none of them seem to be able to connect to the database. The database is accessible to remote clients through a simple Windows file sharing. Okay, can you try navigating to the server share in File Explorer please? IT guy, it's asking for network credentials. Okay, well you can enter those, but chances are it will ask for them again soon. I know of a more permanent solution, though, if you'll just go over to the server. A lot of the offices we work with are pretty small, workgroup works just fine for them, so it's common practice for us to simply turn off password protected sharing on the server. I walk him through how to do this and IT guy, it's asking for administrative credentials for this. Oh, well if you log back in as an administrator you should be able to make that change without a problem. IT guy, oh, so a local account is not the same as an administrator account? Well that can depend. IT guy, because when I did the update I just chose local account because I didn't think it would need all that stuff. Palm moving towards forehead. Well are there any other users available that could be admin? He logs out and sees 3 users, server, user, and one named after our software. We'll call it admin. IT guy, it must the admin account, right? What's the password? Me. Well, we don't generally create users except in specific cases. If we did, we would note it. I go through the entire call history for this office. No mention of creating a user. Me. I'm sorry, it doesn't appear that we created that user, so I wouldn't know the password. You could try. Typical password we would use. IT guy, that didn't work. Me. Well, I'm sorry sir, I don't know the password then, as our support staff didn't create that user. I'm honestly not even sure if that's an administrative account. IT guy, but it says your software name. You have to know the password. That goes on for about 15 minutes. The fact is, we're software support. Creating users is not in our job description except in rare cases where it's necessary for the software to work. Never have I known that to be an issue with this office's version. And in those cases we use a standard password. I eventually told him he'll have to call Microsoft to see about resetting user rights and passwords. Instead, he called us back 3 more times trying to get us to tell him password we didn't/couldn't possibly know. TL. Dr. Office IT guy stripped himself of admin right on the server because he didn't know what administrative account means. Then he tried blaming us because someone at the office created a user with our software name and didn't know the password. And since it wasn't us, we couldn't possibly know the password. Thank you. Next. Okay, so to start with, I worked for about a year in a 0% contract to a company that sells itself to other companies as IT services if they are small companies or just don't have the staff or other. TBH, I don't really fully understand it myself. All I know is I took calls for other companies in this company and sent our guys to go fix said issues at the one that called. I confuse myself some days and I apologize. So this happened only 2 years ago. But it makes me laugh to tell it, and it comes up frequently when around friends also in IT and / or call center type work. A new guy started around the same time I did as a technician, only he knew very little about computer hardware and even less about software, so let's call him Brad, and I got a call from one of the companies hiring us. Let's call it Basilisk cause the name sounds cool. Basilisk was an old long-standing customer of the company I was a temp at. We will now call Port, and one of the managers of Basilisk was asking us to send someone to install some new units. This was because they were upgrading some of their old computers which were starting to show their age. I was also told that they needed some help removing one unit because it was making a strange noise, which we later found out was a faulty cable that if someone had touched would have electrocuted someone, or at least I was again told later as such. So I called our technicians and they sent Brad. So Brad gets there and quickly helps remove the dangerous unit, not knowing anything about computers specifically, but he knew a lot about electrical engineering I believe, and called me as I was the ticket holder and would need to close each part of the job and write up what happened, to tell me he had safely removed the unit and what the issue was, which left me very surprised because it turned out to be the manager who called me's computer, which he had been complaining about hearing this odd buzzing sound for almost a week now, and that it only became an issue after he turned his computer on. I shudder to think what might have happened if said manager had started messing with the cables. Then we got to the easy bit, installing the new units, and while I was waiting I was doing other paperwork and such, when a call comes in from Brad. One of the computers isn't turning on and he cannot figure out why. I asked him if he plugged the wires in properly. He said yes in a huffy, I know what I am doing way. So I said, can you double check? Only to get a long-winded sigh and then a defeated okay from Brad, and everything is silent again for 20 minutes. I get a call 20 minutes later from Brad, hey, I checked all the cables and they are in the unit properly. It still isn't turning on. At this point I am stumped and think it's probably a hardware fault and needs to be sent back. But then, I hear over the phone a voice I do not recognize and guess it's an employee who says, hey, is this supposed to be unplugged? And then silence for what felt like an eternity. Then Brad chimes in, hey, so got the unit to work? Curiously and already guessing what may have happened, I ask, oh, that's great. What was the issue so I can document it? I get silence again, then the earlier voice chimes in again, are you telling him the issue was you forgot to plug in the last unit to the wall socket? More silence, then Brad says slowly, yes. I forgot to plug it into the wall. Then the phone went dead and I had to take a short walk to stop myself from laughing like a lunatic in my cubicle. Sorry for the long post. but the end of it is, I noted down that the cable was either tripped on by someone or pulled on too much that it came out the socket during the install to make Brad's hurting pride hurt less, and the manager was happy with everything else, so job well done. But it still makes me laugh to remember it sometimes, and I hope this story makes other laugh too. Adding in our apologies to those who have complained about punctuation and phrases. So I tried my best to fix it a little, but English as a subject was never my strong suit, and in jobs where I had to write down stuff, I usually asked for someone to proofread it because I know I suck at it. Mostly because the thing I can remember from English class is take a breath after every comma. Thought that was something others did, but again sorry. Thank you. Next. Over 10 years ago, I was doing in-home/small biz tech support for a mom and pop company. It was a great starting out gig. I learned a ton of things. One of the most important ones was dealing with people. One call I had was to an older woman's home office. She was at least 80. Her internet was down, and she couldn't do the bookkeeping that she normally does for a few local small businesses. This woman was a knockout at QuickBooks, but nothing else. I show up for the service call, and in about 3 minutes, I realize that there is an Ethernet cable that was just not plugged in. That's all. I let her know the issue. She had a laugh about it, and effectively my work was done. The company I worked for had a 1-hour minimum charge, and I felt terrible having to charge this polite sweet woman $100 for 3 minutes of work. I explained to her the minimum charge, and asked if there was anything else I could look at so that she gets her money worth. I thought, maybe check for viruses, clean up in general, change printer cartridges, etc. Anything. She turns and asks, "Are you a baseball fan?" Indeed I am, and I told her so. We then sat around and talked baseball for the next 40 minutes. She ended up getting a business call, and I left, but she thanked me for my time, and gave me a tip on top of the hourly fee. Nowadays when I'm doing my job WHCH has much less end user interaction, I sometimes think back to her, and wonder why all clients couldn't have been so sweet. That's all. If any of you are still doing in-home work, stay safe from the COVID. Thank you. Next. Not sure this belongs here. Please let me know a better sub. I knew a guy that worked on telephone CDR, call detail reporting, equipment. Of course they take glitches pretty seriously. They installed a box in a carrier in the spring, and that fall they got a call from the carrier reporting a glitch. Couldn't find anything wrong. It didn't happen again, so everybody just wrote it off. Until the next fall, it happened again, so this time he looked harder, and noticed that it happened on the 10th of October, 10/10. At 10 hours, 10 minutes, and 10 seconds AM, analysis showed it was a buffer overflow issue. Buffer overflow? Because of a specific date/time? Are you kidding? No. What I didn't mention, this was back in the 80s, before TCP/IP, back in the days of SDLC/HDLC/bisyncline protocols. Tutorial time. SDLC/HDLC are bit level protocols. The hardware typically gets confused if there are too many 1 bits or 0 bits in a row. No, I'm not going into why that is. It's beyond my expertise. So these protocols will insert zeros or ones as needed, and then take them out on the other end. From a user standpoint, you can put any 8-bit byte in one end, magic happens, and it comes out the other end. Bisync, invented/used by IBM, is a byte-level protocol, 8-bit bytes. It tries to be transparent, but control characters are mixed in with data characters. If you have any data that looks like a control character, then it is preceded with an DLE character, 0x10. You probably see where this is going. Yes, any 0x10 data bytes look like a control character, so they get a 0x10, DLE, inserted before them. Date of 0x10 gets converted to DLE 0x10 DLE 0x10, or 0x10. The more 0x10s in the data stream, the longer the buffer needs to be. On 10/10 at 10 hours, 10 minutes, and 10 seconds, the buffer wasn't long enough, causing the overflow. Solution: no code change. The allocated buffer just needed to be a few bytes longer. Thank you. Next. I was a developer for commercial communications equipment. We got a report of a box that was failing around the same time every afternoon. But only some days. And the time was gradually drifting, a few minutes later each day, whether or not it failed that day. That definitely caused some head scratching. Some kind of business rush caused an overload? Vibration? Somebody put a something on it when they came into the office? Actually, it was a heat-related failure of a board. The box was sitting out on a table in an office. The sun would shine through a window onto the box, and heat it up, depending on the time of day. The days it didn't fail, cloudy. Of course, the drift of the time of failure was because of the seasonal change in the sun path. Thank you. Next. Client called me and asked me to help him configure some CCTV software on his server. I log on to TeamViewer and within a minute I see his knowledge of the software or IT in general is almost non-existent because almost nothing is configured and the things that were configured were not correct. Still, he's been sent by his boss to fix it, so might as well help the poor lad, I thought. Fast forward 30 minutes. We checked everything. We configured everything. We tested everything. All was good. Throughout the configuration he is asking me questions like, hey, why did you do X or Y? It really showed he was willing to learn, so I was really glad I could help him out. I was just about to round up the configuration by checking something on my PC, so I look over to the other monitor and I tell him what I'm going to do to finish up the configuration. I hear him agreeing with everything I'm saying. While I'm looking away, he is asking me some more questions about the software and IT in general. Suddenly, the following happens. Client, C, me, C, hey me, I'm clicking around checking some things. Me, C, it's asking me if I want to continue or not. Me, what did you click? C, not sure. Something about factory reset. My face darts back to the other monitor. Me, press no. C, yes. Me, number. Press number. And before I could even move my mouse fast enough from my other monitor to the TeamViewer session, the dude clicks on continue. C, shit, I think I clicked yes. The software rebooted. Everything was gone. C, chuckles haha. So, what now? Me, here's a manual. Follow it step by step. Have a very nice day, sir. He apologized, said thank you and I hung up. I almost threw my phone at the wall.